Hi, welcome to Atlassian Tech TV. My name's Chris Mountford, and I take you inside Atlassian to show you how we make software. This time I interview Lucy Bain, front-end developer from Bitbucket Server, formerly known as Stash. This episode is from a two-part interview. In the first part, we learn a bit about Lucy, the world traveller. Originally from the USA, Lucy tells the story of how she found her way to the Atlassian mothership, the Sydney office. We also discuss that most controversial of agile practices, pair programming, and touch on the matter of formal research into the effectiveness of software practices. In part 2, we discuss her work on the front end of Bitbucket Server. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming episodes. Let me ask you then about your front-end work. Your role previously, was that something where you would do a little bit of front-end and back-end, or you do the whole thing, and now you're focused on a specialization? Is that how it is for you?
Yeah, so my previous job, I was a back-end developer, and then I would do some front-end things.
Yeah.
And I've just found that anytime I was asked to do a bit of JavaScript as one of those front-end things, I was a little bit nervous about it, and I didn't feel quite as comfortable with that. So I knew that the next role I wanted was going to be front-end, just so I could focus on that bit that I knew I wasn't as good at.
Right. So to sort of get that full stack range.
Yes, yeah. So that's the goal. Hopefully I'm moving towards being more full stack.
Cool. And so you're obviously doing a lot of JavaScript on the front end. Did you do much JavaScript on the back end, or you had Ruby, so obviously you were...
Yeah, we didn't do any JavaScript back end, and I'm not doing any for Stash either right now.
Okay, yeah, so you're on the Stash team?
Yes, that's right.
And how do you find working in a team like that? You're a specialist, you're focusing on the front end, and there are people who focus on the back end. How many in the team?
The whole Stash team's about 30. My little team, there's 6 of us.
Right. And so you're a feature stream, are you? You've got some front end, some back end, and then you're working on certain features for a release.
Yeah, that's right. But it's not the whole team working on the same feature. So certain people will work together on a feature if they need front and back, or if it's just a front end, then one of us can pick that up.
Right, so the team sort of focuses and splits and recombines.
Yes, yeah, very fluid.
How does that team composition work? Do you have QA people? Do you have designers? And because front-end developer doesn't necessarily imply designer, but it could be a bit. It could be someone who's working a lot with the pixels. You mentioned CSS. You're choosing how things look, maybe following a style that a designer has set. How does that work on your team?
So Stash, we have 2 designers on our team, and we go to them at the beginning of things and ask them questions if we're not certain how they want to implement it, or they can give us this is what we think it could be, and sort of start that conversation. The features that I've been working on have been using the AUI styles that have been predefined by other designers, so I'm not asking those questions and I can just sort of implement it. But I know other people are working on other features that I assume have more interaction.
Yes, AUI's Atlassian user interface components. Were you aware of AUI before you started at Atlassian?
So sort of. I knew about it a little bit, but I never worked with it.
Right. Yeah.
Implement this feature using AUI. Go.
Right.
Okay.
So what do you get in the box?
I think it's pretty cool. I'm implementing flags, which are the notification features that we have, and so I'm just sort of AUI flag, go, here are the features I want associated with that flag, and it's all ready to go. It's been browser tested. I think it's pretty handy.
And so those are things where, is that the one that it's like a message, not necessarily a pop-up, but a kind of message that slides or has a color?
Yeah.
And does it fade away?
You can, but you can choose, I can have it stay there forever, or you have to close it out or have it fade away. So I think that's really nice that they have made it so customizable for other products to use, but it helps keep everything feel consistent.
Right. Cool. And so you get user interface elements like that, and you don't have to construct them from CSS primitives.
Right. And everything can stay in sync properly. Something I worked on was getting the colors from AUI into Stash, because we had some inconsistencies there.
Right.
And so then when AUI decides to upgrade and change this color blue or the shades of gray or something, that then we just get that for free, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. And how about your professional career? You're joining Atlassian. You've only been here a couple of months, and you're a world traveler. You're changing technology stacks. You're going from back end to front end. Seems like your practice of learning new technologies on a regular basis and adopting a sort of a changing focus makes for a more capable range of sort of technical execution. You can do front end, you can do back end. Is this something that you see as a career strategy for you, or is it just you just like it?
I think it's a bit of both. I think that part of me was saying, like, I've been doing Rails for a little while and that's been fun, but I kind of want to try something new. There's definitely tons more for me to learn in Rails, so it wasn't that I was getting bored, but just sort of interested in new things. And then, so there was that part, but there's definitely like, this is something that I feel that I'm not good at and I want to be better at. And so like consciously seek out being better at this thing. That was definitely half of it as well. I think that's partly a career move, that if for some reason Rails like completely tanks in the next year, like I've got a backup, so that's handy. Hopefully that doesn't happen, because I wouldn't really be using full stack anymore. I think it's nice to have that diversity and to see how other languages deal with other problems and hopefully apply that back as needed.
Yeah, I think the diversity is really an important thing. Whenever people join Atlassian, I sort of gravitating towards them saying, so tell us what it's like out there in the rest of the world. It's a great place to work as a developer, but what can we do better that other places that we hire great people from, that they're already doing? We've already talked about pair programming as preferred, as a sort of personal preference for how teams can gel, how they can share knowledge, and how maybe they can, get code quality. But what other things do you think we could do more of based on your experience in other places?
I mean, I think Atlassian does a pretty good job, and I think,
to hear too.
yeah, I think it is one of the good things about hiring new people, because it is easy to say, well, this is how he's always done it, but that new person coming in is like, oh, but that's not how I've always done it. So something that came up recently on my team, we've done our stand-ups on HipChat, and that sort of is a legacy thing that people would come in at different times, or we had people working from home a lot, and that was fine, but we've done team reshuffle, and like now we're actually all in at stand-up time, and so like, why are we doing this on HipChat? So that was something that I brought up, because at my own company, we never had stand-up on chat. Like that was never going to happen. And so it seemed that was weird to me, and it was something that I could say, like, let's just rethink this, and then the teams, oh yeah, you're right, like things have changed, let's reflect that. Yeah,
so that's an interesting point too. I mean, a lot of the time people ask, especially being a software tools company, they ask us, so how do you do this? How do you, not only how do you use your own tools, like how do you use HipChat to do that thing, or how do you use Jira to run these projects? Also, how do you make software in general? How do you do things? What's best practice? And one of the things I like to say is, well, best practice, I kind of don't think there is such a thing. I mean, it's more like what is the biggest opportunity for you to take now? Like, what change do you need to make now? Maybe it made sense for the team to use HipChat or use a sort of remote tool when there were people in different parts of the world.
Right.
But then when things change, it won't make sense anymore. So that's an example of where you proposed a change in the team. But then I thought, well, actually, that is a best practice. Being responsive to change. That's actually the best practice, to be capable of responding to a dynamic situation. So do you find that Atlassian is good at that? I mean, that's an example where it works.
I think that is it is an important thing. I've heard about one of the teams at Atlassian, I'm not sure which though, that each sprint they take on something new, and then they review that at the end of the sprint and say, do we really want to keep this around? Like we tried doing our stand-ups on HipChat, and like, did we like that or not, or pair programming or something, and then they just keep the bits that they like, which I think that's pretty cool. I think it's hard to keep the excitement for that going after a few sprints.
So you're talking about sprints, you're talking about, retrospectives, reviewing what happened at the end of the sprint. How long are the sprints in Stash?
We do 5-week sprints. So
5 weeks?
Yeah, it's pretty long. We do 4 weeks of product development, and then the 5th week is our innovation week.
Right.
And then we do the retro at the end.
And tell me there is innovation happening outside of innovation week, because that would be a horrible route.
Yeah. No. We do our own innovation as we go along, but that's sort of dedicated developer time, or 20% time. Right,
20% time. So that's really where you're just deciding what to build.
Right.
As well as how to build it.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to get back to that question about other specialization roles. There's say you mentioned 2 designers. Are there QA?
Right.
How does that composition of that 30 people team
Right.
work?
So we have the 2 designers. We have 2 QA. One of them came on about the same time I did, so I think they were happy to have a second.
Right.
We have 2 PMs, and one of them is also quite new.
PMs are product managers.
Yep. And then front end and back end. I think we've got one person who's working specifically on performance, but I'm not sure if that's a permanent role, if that's just what he's currently working on.
Right. And what's the stack in Stash? There's obviously JavaScript and that's the stuff on the front end because it's got a web front end. And is everything on the back end Java, or is it?
As far as I know.
Yeah. That's not your area.
It's not my area. Everybody I talk to is working in Java, so I think that's everything.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, cool. The company as a place to work, because it's quite an engineering mindset company, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess a couple of things with that is it's a much bigger company than anywhere I've worked before. Like, I don't think I've worked at a company that had 30 people, never mind like my team,
Okay.
It's just massive for me.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot that comes with that scale of like booking meeting rooms actually has to happen. Like at my old company when you had 2 meeting rooms and there was only ever 1 meeting room happening at a time. So so things like that are quite different. But then there's also like people have responded to that, and we have our calendars. Most people keep their calendars public. So booking time in with people is something I have to do, but it's also not as difficult because I can check and see when they're available before I bother.
Yeah, I need to get better at that.
So I think that there's, like, yes, having that kind of scale has a cost, but people are aware of it and they're sort of constantly thinking about how to make that better and like asking, do we really need to have this meeting and things like that we didn't need to do at my old companies, but I think people are responding to it pretty well.
Yeah. It's a funny thing for me because when I joined Atlassian, it wasn't bigger than 30 people. And so it's one of those things that the company has grown to sort of where we had these, meeting rooms, booking meeting rooms, and they had names, and then we had teams, and not everyone knew everyone's job and things like that. So it's grown to that. And that also makes it something that for someone like me who's been inside this company doing this the whole time, it's really important that we look outside to make sure that what we're doing is our best option for solving the problems we're trying to solve. And that's why I always like to ask people who are new, to give that fresh perspective. So thanks for that. So I guess we'll leave it there. But are you on social media? Can people follow you on Twitter or?
Yeah, so I'm Lucy K. Bain on Twitter.
Okay.
I guess that'll probably
I'll
be
put
written
it on
down.
the bottom. Yeah.
Okay.
It's right here probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And thanks very much for your time.
Thanks.
That's a wrap for another episode of Atlassian Tech TV. Please subscribe and follow us on Twitter. We've also got tons of stuff on our blog at developer.atlassian.com.